Week 6, college football in the books. Let's take away what we've learned. I mean, who had this Alabama upset happening? No one. That was just crazy, and that was just the bedrock of back-to-back incredible weeks that we've had. Week 5 and week 6 have been just amazing, top-tier college football weeks, and we have 2 more coming up. This next weekend, we have blockbuster games. The following weekend, we have blockbuster games. There is going to be a ton of more carnage and a ton of excitement for these next 2 weeks on top of the past 2 weeks that we had just had. So it is shaping up to be one of the better college football seasons that I remember. It's been great so far. Another thing I've learned, there are no elite teams. I put out a video maybe last week or 2 weeks ago where I said there's about 5 teams in the sport that are separating themselves from the rest of the sport. That video should just be blown up, should be hit with an atom bomb. There are no elite teams. Everyone is susceptible right now. We still have some teams that we think are probably really good in Texas and Ohio State. But after what we've seen so far this year, there is no team that I am very comfortable saying, like, you are elite, you are at the top of the sport, you are better than everyone else. Because, like, we've seen holes and we've seen upsets all over the place for all of these teams. Another thing that maybe not a lot of people are talking about right now is the G5 team. Like, if Boise State ends up winning the Mountain West and having a really good record with their only loss to Oregon, like, they may take this number 4 seed away from what is supposed to be really for the Big 12. The Big 12 is just beating up on itself, and there's losses being handed all over the place. And I think that's just going to continue for the rest of the year. So it's very possible that you get a team like Boise State who could end up winning the Mountain West and having a really good resume. They could end up getting that number 4 spot. So that's just something I wanted to keep an eye on and keep a lookout for, because that's going to be an interesting topic come playoff time. Okay, Nico. Man, he looked like a freshman this Saturday. I may have bought in on the hype of maybe a little bit too much, a little too early on Nico. I've been riding that train for quite some time, and I thought I took him as a preseason Heisman winner. He looked like a freshman on Saturday night. Big spot for him, going to Arkansas, a night game, tough road game. And he made some mistakes that, that freshman would make. One particularly at the end of the game where he just ran out of bounds. But he had some throws that were a little bit questionable throws. And that's kind of been, where he's been operating all year. He's had some bad interceptions and some bad looks. But he's also coupled that with just insane throws and insane looks. But he very much looked, like a rookie and new to the sport on Saturday. He's got a big test against Florida coming up this weekend, followed by Alabama at home. So he's got some time to, get things together and has everything ahead of him for the rest of the season, but definitely had some mistakes you want to keep an eye out for. All right. The chaos that has happened this past week and so far this season has really opened up lanes for Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty in this Heisman race. Typically, these types of players on these teams don't sustain the rest of the season, like come week 10, week 11, week 12, because of the team's success. Like typically like a Colorado or a Boise State, because they're G5, don't have players that are in the consideration for a Heisman Trophy because their teams are not in a position to compete for a national title. Now, with all this chaos happening and how excellent these two are performing, there really is a lane that's opening up for them to be Heisman Trophy winners at the end of the year. I think right now they're 1-2, and it very well could stay like that, especially if we have a lot of these big teams continuing to lose. So we'll keep an eye out for that, but that is really interesting. Not to mention that those two are just having a phenomenal jaw-dropping seasons. So that has been great. Okay, the game that everyone watched and everyone watched probably the last 5 minutes. And the one that everyone is talking about took the college football world by storm. Alabama loses to Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia hands them their first loss to Vanderbilt, and I think like 40 years or something like that. It was just a crazy stat. It's a once in a lifetime thing, honestly, probably that this has happened. And they came off a big win over Georgia and just they fell apart. They weren't prepared for this Vanderbilt team who has looked pretty salty this year. They beat Virginia Tech. They've looked pretty good. They took Missouri to overtime. Obviously, they just beat Alabama. So you can't be sleeping on Vandy this year. They're a salty team. In the midst of all this chaos, all the Power Four conferences are wide open. I don't really feel good about any of them. I don't think that there is a clear, distinct, projected winner in any of the conferences right now. I think they all have, their own respective favorites. I think the Texas is, will be the SEC favorite at the moment. Ohio State at the moment will be Big Ten. That's it. And they're not. That's not guaranteed. I'm not looking at those teams and saying, "Hey, there's no losses on your schedule, or there's nothing that can happen that will prevent them from winning." Like every conference is open, which makes this season so much fun, and it's just going to get even crazier. Obviously, we have Ohio State and Oregon this weekend. I think Georgia, Texas this weekend, or sorry, the following weekend. So all these teams will be playing each other, and all the conferences are wide open. Michigan really needs some help. Jack Tuttle came in at quarterback and provided a brief, moment of, okay, maybe this isn't so bad, but they really need some help at quarterback. They are extremely, extremely one-dimensional, which makes it so easy for the defenses to get a hold of what they're doing. They just stack the box, force them to pass, and they just can't do it. It's a pretty big drop-off from where they were last year as winning the national title. This was a rematch that they had against Washington, and Washington pretty much just controlled the game, all game. So Michigan desperately needs some help from where they were last year. Also, if you're a really diehard college football fan, don't sleep on the Friday night games. These past couple of weeks have had banger Friday night games going to the wire. Some upsets. Like, it has been really awesome. This past weekend we had Syracuse and UNLV go into overtime. The last weekend we had Miami and Virginia Tech on Friday night. Like, these games on Friday have been awesome. So make sure to keep an eye out for those Friday night games. We have another one this weekend with Utah and Arizona State. So another Friday night game that's going to be great. Follow Big Body Ball CFB on all socials.